Hi everyone, welcome along. My name is Phil Smith, and over the next 45 minutes, I'll be sharing a little bit more about the story of Northampton Town FC Community Trust and how we developed a community-led strategy for the community we serve in Northamptonshire. Hi everyone, welcome along. My name is Phil Smith. I'll also be covering. I'll be sharing a little bit more about Northampton Town FC. I'll also be covering a little bit more on how we diversified our work. And how that led to greater growth, greater impact and stability, even through COVID, which no one could predict. And hopefully I'll share some top tips from our experience in what went well and some of the pitfalls as well. So a little bit about me and my background. I've been in football for about 5 years now. Prior to that, I was working for an organisation doing sport health across the UK. It was really during my time at Leyton Orient Trust, where I spent 2.5 years as head of health and wellbeing, where I really got to understand the power of football and the impact it can make across the community. And within that role, I was very fortunate to be able to work with some amazing people and design and develop some health programs that could make a real impact, both locally and taken to be delivered nationally as well. So, having spent my 2.5 years at Leyton Orient, I took a step up to become CEO at Northampton Town FC Community. And it's there really where I got the opportunity to develop my first organisational strategy, which had its challenges, as I'll come to now. I think one of the things to mention is really my first day at the job at Northampton Town FC Community, because I'll always remember it. Walked into the office, which was a porter cabin stuck on the side of the football club. About 3 people could fit in our office at the time, very, very tiny. Got in, logged onto the computer, and I couldn't see any files. And I turned to one of my colleagues and said, right, where's everything stored? And she said, what do you mean? We haven't got anything. And it was at that point I was thinking, oh God, what have I let myself in for here? So it was having to really build the organisation up from scratch, which was a great opportunity. Prior to me joining, the organisation had gone through a number of challenges, financially losing money, and was a very, very basic football in the community programme. And really, that's why the importance of strategy came in, because there was no direction, and that was one of the biggest jobs that I've had to do. So a little bit about Northampton Town Community Trust. We're the official charity of Northampton Town Football Club. We're based around an hour outside of London. So Northamptonshire is one of the largest towns in the UK, just under 750,000 in population, around 90% white British population as well. And a couple of other key points really to mention is that as a charity and a separate organisation to the club, but closely linked, we don't receive any direct funding from the club itself. So all of the income raised has to be through grants, through earned income, sponsorships, other things that we bring in. When I joined 3 years ago, very small team, 7 staff, about 21 volunteers, heavily reliant on volunteers. And seven trustees and a relatively new board of trustees who were overseeing the charity. I note the turnover, just to kind of outline that we're quite a small charity at that time, and we still are, but we are growing as we move forward. And I think this is really important because when we talk about our strategy and how we developed it, we didn't have much resource available. I was spinning a number of plates, wearing a number of hats for different roles within the organisation. Had a small but dedicated team that we were looking to pull forward, and it was a very traditional football in the community programme. So we would have our holiday courses, our schools programmes, but it was all really just football related. And it was really untapped in actually showing what the potential could be for impact. So the way we went about creating a strategy was we were looking at how we could let the community lead it. And what do I mean by community-led strategy? It's about actually understanding what our community needs. And that's the vital part, because traditionally, the way that a lot of work had been done was that we would decide, right, we think this is going to be a good idea, let's do it. However, we wanted to turn that on the head to actually go, well, what does our community need? What do they want? Let's speak to them. Let's find out exactly what it is that they need, so we can then try and see if it's something we can help with. Now, some of those things we might be able to help with, some of them we may not be able to. But it was really important to make sure we've got that input from them. And the key thing to start off with for us as an organisation with no previous strategy, with no original direction, and our transition away from football only led activities. Football will always be the core of what we do, but actually can we expand that to look at being more than football? Is we started with why, and I'll note Simon Sinek book here, which I'd highly recommend to people that haven't read it. Which really gets you to think about why you're doing something. Everyone knows what we do and what we can do, but it's actually the why and the purpose behind that, which is really important when we created our strategy. So we looked at 4 key questions. So first of all, why do we exist? What is it about us that, why do we need to be here? Why is our work needed? So what will happen if we don't have our work? And what happens if we don't have the potential work that we're going to do in the future? Why are we delivering the specific activities that we are at the moment? What is the specific reasoning? And why are we best placed to do this? As a charity, as a football club, why are we best placed to go out and deliver health programs in the community? Why are we best placed to go and deliver employability programs? And really understanding that. And that really opened up a number of questions for us. So we undertook an exercise with our board of trustees who oversee the charity, and some of our key staff at the time, just to really try and understand what it is that we need to look at. And I think one of the key things in terms of that as well is that we asked our community, why do you think we should deliver these, and what sort of things do you think we should deliver? And it was through that we learned a really important element of insight, which was around how much that the wider public knew about us and the football club. And now Northampton Town is a football club. They play their football in League One, so it's a couple of leagues below the Premier League. And so it's not the biggest club, but it's a club on the rise. And so there was a clear misunderstanding between what we do and how we link into the club, which impacted on funders, it impacted on fundraising, the general public, and they knew that the football club did some good work, but they weren't aware that there was a charitable arm behind it, and that was funded completely separately to the football club as well. So that was a real boundary that we had to come across and try and get over. And one of the key things that we have within our strategy is that we are data driven, and I would recommend this to anyone to really look at the data behind what is important and what are the issues locally. So in developing our new strategy, we looked at a number of layers of data, both local, national and international data, to really understand the needs of the community. And we mapped that across then what our community has told us. So within our community, we did a number of questionnaires. We spoke to funders. We looked at the data from schools, from the police for crime. We looked at public health data, and we looked at the council data as well to really understand within Northamptonshire. As you can see, there's a number of different areas within Northamptonshire as the county itself. What was it that we could support with and where? So this for us was a really important element, because the data behind it, often you can see trends, and often you can see what are the long-term problems that aren't going to be solved overnight, but that we can really build into a strategy to go for a longer period of time. We were looking at a 3-year strategy when we set out to do this. And so a lot of these issues weren't going to be solved in 3 years, but it's how we can support and play our part in engaging those. And particularly looking around the crime element and the health element. From my own previous experience in other roles, it was about how we could really make a difference within those areas. And And I think the questionnaire side of things and speaking to our community was in a number of different parts, because initially we were able to speak to the people that we already worked with. But the challenge you have there is that you only know what you know from those people. And if you want to try and reach out and engage with other people from the community, it's about spreading your net further. So traditionally, a lot of our work was delivered within Northampton itself, which is only a small part in Northamptonshire itself. There are a number of other towns within Northamptonshire, which we then needed to look at and see how we might be able to support and engage with people within those areas. So holding a number of stakeholder events within those areas. And it was about making sure that we fed into the bigger picture as well. So when we look at Northamptonshire as a local area and a local county, it's how can we make a difference there, but it's how can we also feed into national policy, national issues, and international as well. And that's where we look at the UN Sustainable Goals and how we can feed into our work within there, and nationally as well, how we're contributing on a local level to achieve that. And again, for us, this was really, really important, particularly with COVID coming on as well, in terms of understanding the needs of our community. Because whilst COVID is a huge challenge and a huge change in itself, what it has also done is it's exacerbated and made worse a number of the other problems that were already under the surface that we were dealing with, such as things like loneliness, which now has come to the forefront even more. But this really helped to align us and understand how we fed into the bigger picture as well. And I think for our staff, it was really important as well to understand what we're doing locally, but also what we're doing nationally and internationally with it. So when we set out to develop our strategy, we looked at identifying a number of different key stakeholders that we were going to engage with to understand. Some of them were existing and some of them were new. The biggest areas that we were looking at were our community members, to get the input and the understanding from them of what were the issue and what were the needs that we could potentially support with. So as I mentioned, we held a number of stakeholder groups across the county that allowed us to understand different needs and different elements from those. And we then mapped that against the data that we'd pulled in from the reports for understanding the correlation between it. We spoke to the football club as our key partner. We wanted to understand how we could support them, what they needed from us, and then what we actually could then give back to them as well. And then we work with other partners as well. So funders such as the Premier League Charitable Fund and EFL Trust, to the Department for Work and Pensions, Council, other external funders as well, because that was really important to understand what the roadmap was for them and what they saw coming up on the horizon as the need. And then the other key elements that we discussed was around staff and volunteers and trustees, because one of the things that we felt was vitally important was making sure that our staff, our volunteers and our trustees all had buy-in within the new vision, the mission, the values that we were creating. Because this was a journey for everyone, with it being the first organisational strategy for them in what was a number of years. It was really important that everyone was understanding of it and was fully bought in to really drive forward to make that impact and really support people. The one I've highlighted there is faith groups, because in terms of locally, that was one thing that we didn't do, which I think going forward and doing it again, we would want to try and have more input. Because looking at the demographic within Northamptonshire, we're about 90% white British community, around 10% BAME. And so we wanted to try and work more with BAME communities. And in doing that, we've identified that there is a need for us to try and go out and understand the barriers to accessing our activities. And so really important to engage with groups that may not traditionally engage with your sessions, to be able to find out what those barriers are then. So We developed our strategy over around a 6-month time frame, which was quite quick. And if we had more time, we would have probably spent even more time on it. It's not something you can rush. But as I sort of alluded to at the start, we had a number of challenges that we had to overcome as a small organisation with limited resources to be able to put this together. So we were battling away against continuing to get funding in, continuing to develop our programmes, whilst we're also developing this strategy. And so it shows that you can do a lot within a short period of time if you have the structure there and if you have the right people around you. So we kind of put it into 7 steps, and I think that the community element of it was included throughout this. But the first thing we did as part of our strategy was to review our current data, our current programs, which at the time was very limited. If we'd had a strategy prior to this, we would have reviewed that to look at how that had made an impact in the previous years. Another important part that we did was we reviewed other organisations that were delivering locally. And this was really useful for us to understand what was already being delivered, where the gaps were, what was working and what wasn't. Because for us, it was about making sure we weren't reinventing the wheel. If there are great organisations out there doing stuff already, it's how can we work with them, not against them. The third thing we did was a PEST analysis, which stands for political, economic, social and technological. And this gave us a real understanding of the wider potential risks and opportunities that were going to become available. So one of the things that we looked at specifically, which again has really helped us through COVID, is that technological side of things, because we knew that in terms of systems, in terms of processes, as an organisation, we weren't geared up to be able to really grow and develop without them. So as part of our strategy, we looked at how we invested in digital and how we were able to potentially utilise that as we move along to deliver our activities. After conducting some of the data elements, we then put it together for an internal consultation. So that's where we took our staff and our trustees on an away day. We got an external consultant in just for the day. We haven't got a big budget. We haven't got lots of cash to spend. It was purely one day with an external person coming in just to talk through and try and eke out some of those values, the mission statement, and the real purpose as well. Because that then allowed us to be able to take that to external consultation to understand what our stakeholders thought of that, what our funders and what the community also thought of that as well. And there were some things that they thought were brilliant. There were some things that we thought, actually, we need to go back to the drawing board on this and look again. And then we moved on to the creation phase and the launch phase. And within the creation phase, we wanted to make sure that our strategy wasn't something that was just going to sit on paper, and it was going to be something that is brought to life. And so we created 2 versions of it. So we had a full version of it, which was a booklet that could be shared with funders, with people that wanted to see a little bit more detail behind it all. And then we had a couple of 1-pagers that we created as well, which were more staff facing. They were more participant facing and community facing, so that people can actually simply understand what we do on a page rather than having to read through masses and masses of text. And then we went to launch it. We eventually launched it for the 2019-20 season, and we're about a year and a half through our strategy now, so we're starting to see some of the impact as that comes through. And I love this photo because it's one of our programs, Extra Time Hubs, which we've been running for, I think, about 10 years in various forms. But even throughout this, through lockdown, through COVID, it's become even more important. It's about engaging with older adults, bringing them together to connect them and allow them to stay active and engaged within their community. And it's really about what we do, because our mission at the Community Trust is to connect communities and improve people's lives. And our vision, we looked at what we came up with was healthy, happy and connected Northamptonshire. So it's about using the unique appeal of Northampton Town Football Club to deliver these activities, which is vitally important. So this is actually one of our simple one-pagers that we share with the staff, we share with our partners, stakeholders, just to really understand what we do and what we came up with throughout that process. Our values were developed along with our staff, which again has really helped with buy-in and helps to show how we're living them on a regular basis. And the work we do, we ended up focusing on 3 core outcomes, which also then feed into national and international outcomes as well. But we've split it into medium and long term because we know that some of our work, the impact will be much sooner than some of the sort of the longer term elements that we're looking at and what we're trying to feed into. So we're looking at improved health and well-being, looking at developing stronger, safer, connected communities, and we're looking at enhancing life opportunities. And through that, we've really looked at 4 different core areas of work with a 5th then underpinning everything we do. So in doing this, one of the key things we were looking at is diversifying our work. So steering away from just the football element, but actually looking at how we can use football to make a bigger difference within the community, whether that be just the brand of the club to open doors and unlock, or whether it be actually using it as a tool for good as well. So through the work that I'd previously done and through the community engagements that we'd done, we realised that we could unlock doors to different parts of the community that your normal health services or your normal police services couldn't do. And so things like health checks for men, things like weight management programs, people wouldn't go to their GP, and men, there's a lot of statistics about how frequently men go to the GP versus women, with it being a lot lower for men, but they will come to their football club. So it's about how we base our activities as well. And we decided on 5 different areas across Northamptonshire where we wanted to deliver our work. And this was really important because we needed to make sure that we were quite specific in where we were working. We weren't too scattergun. So we focused on 5 areas, and over the 3 years, we've got a plan as to how we move into those new areas, building from Northampton, where a lot of our work is at the moment, all the way through to wider areas like Corby and Kettering, which are much further away, where the pull of the football club brand is still there, but it's not as much. So we've got to build that up. We looked at focusing towards 2 of the UN Sustainable Goals, so good health and wellbeing and quality education through the work that we do. And the 4 areas of work we deliver are all underpinned by the NTFC experiences and how we can get fans closer to the action, how we can develop new fans and really inspire and engage using the football club as well. So that's really the key elements of it, and our strategy has allowed us to have that sort of direction, that roadmap to help us, and it really does make decisions a lot easier when we know where we're delivering, who we're delivering to, and the types of work that we are delivering as well. And it's clear for partners, it's clear for the people we work with to understand why we're here, and going back to that question of why, what is the difference we're making and why are we doing it. We opened it out to engage with a theme-based approach, so we're looking at themes of work rather than targeting on a particular age group or demographic, which again has allowed us particularly in terms of as we move forward, to be able to diversify and engage. And what we want to try and do is build a pathway through for people, so that when they join us at age 5, they can continue doing activities with us all the way through until they're age 105. And that for us is really important, as to offering a number of pinch points on the way that we can support them with. And a key part of our strategy as well is around our strategic aims. So we know that where we were back a year and a half ago when we started developing this, we didn't have the capacity to be able to deliver all of these activities. There were new areas that we're working on, education and employability, for example, health and well-being. So we needed to look at how we build our expertise within those areas, and gain credibility as well, particularly with the local health services, to prove to them this is why we can deliver these activities. This is why we are best placed to do it as well. And again, one of the key things from learning from our community was how we needed to raise our profile, because a lot of the work that we're doing, if they weren't aware of who we were or how it was working, it's about then showing them the impact that we can make, and showing them the difference that we are from the football club, but similarly that we are still part of the club. And one of the things that we looked at in terms of demonstrating the value and the impact we make, and really delivering the change, is coming up with a theory of change. So I don't expect you to be able to see that through the presentation. It is very, very small, but on the left, in the context side of things, this really shows the data-driven approach that we took to really understand the people we're working with across the community and the challenges that they face, so that we can then best serve them. So there's a lot of data there, which is the narrative behind what we're doing. And at the time that we developed this as well, the theory of change model that we decided, the issue on that was focused around Northamptonshire County Council. Was one of the first county councils in the country, in the UK, to go bust effectively, and had to be bailed out and supported by the government. And so because of that, there'd been extensive cuts to local services, which had caused a lot of barriers to people being able to engage with a range of services, limiting social integration, learning, and opportunities for communities to stay healthy, happy, and connected. So that really, with our issue, we looked at how we solve that with our vision, our mission. So we looked at our outcomes for the long term, medium term, short term, work back, and we're using this as our impact measurement roadmap to look at how effective our strategy is. And some things will work, some things won't. And that's the great thing about the theory of change model, is that it's about learning what does work, and then being able to put more resource within that, and develop that for our further strategies. But also understanding what doesn't work as well, or what outcomes we think were going to happen but haven't. And then there'll be the byproduct of outcomes that happen that we didn't expect as well. And all of that learning will then help us feed into our next strategy after the 3-year cycle of this one ends. Now, obviously behind the theory of change model as well, we had a number of key assumptions. COVID wasn't one of those assumptions, but what was really pleasing to us is that because we'd taken the data-driven approach, because we'd spoken to our community, a lot of the work that we did was still highly relevant, and our purpose was still highly relevant as well, about connecting communities and improving lives. And I think that approach has really helped us and allowed us to be able to be in such a position to be able to engage and continue supporting even through COVID. So within our strategy as well, we wanted to look at our business model, because we were a very, very basic model, reliant on football related activities, limited income streams, and that really meant that it was a lot more risk in terms of what we were doing. So as part of our new strategy, we looked at how we can diversify our income streams through the different themes that we're focusing on. So looking at opening up new themes like health and well-being and employability, which allow us to then tap into new opportunities. As an organisation as well, we wanted to look at how we had a split for our different income, because a lot of the work that we wanted to do, we want to make an impact, and to do that we need to be sustainable. If we're not here for 3 years, we can't make the impact that we need to. So we wanted to grow, we wanted to make that, and it was about having that trade-off between activities that could bring in the income, and then the activities that we know aren't going to bring in any income but are going to have the biggest impact on the people that we serve. And it's trying to make sure that our business model met that, so that we could then cover off and counter those non-financial but impact-making projects to really make sure that they can deliver for the community. And throughout this, one of the focuses for us is about building our reserves as a charity to make sure that we can then continue and be sustainable year on year. So we're all set under a year into our strategy, about 8 months into our new strategy, and COVID-19 hit. No one could predict it. No one could expect how it would pan out. But what we did know is that our relevancy, our why around connecting communities and improving lives was even more important than ever. And so we were very quick to move to develop a new initiative, which really consolidated a lot of our existing work and built on it. And I think in the way that we've set up our strategy, it allowed us to be quite agile to move. So our Keep Calm Cobbler On initiative was all about engaging with older adults, participants with a disability from our programs and the wider community, to keep them connected, to keep them engaged and supported throughout lockdown and beyond. It allowed us to think differently around the activities that we do. We had to move very, very quickly, and we actually set this up within 3 days. And one of the biggest things to allow us to do that was our connections to the community, to our stakeholders, that we've been able to do through our strategy building, and being able to call on people to say, right, what are the issues? What do we need support with? How can we help? And that really helped us. And it also meant that we were well positioned for funding through our strategy as well, because a lot of the work we were already doing around older adults, around people with a disability, was still needed, and needed even more than ever. And so for us, it was a lot easier to go to funders to say, look, we've already got these projects set up, but we need to just think differently about them, take them online, support in different ways. And you'll see there from one of the posts that we've got Colin from our Extra Time Hubs program. And as part of that program, we thought differently to look at, right, how can we get people online quickly, easily, and support them to stay connected. And so we managed to pull in some funding to buy some Kindles, which we could then hand out to community members. And then we moved some of our staff across to support with getting them set up on it remotely over the phone, and allowing them to get online, which has been vital. But the key thing to us being able to move very quickly through COVID was our links into the community already, to really understand what the needs were, and to be able to link in with our partners from our strategy and from the way that we developed our strategy earlier in that year then. And so in terms of the impact of our strategy, it's been massive. I think prior to having our strategy in place, there was no real direction. But through doing this, it has enabled us to reach even more people that need support, and actually identify the people who we wouldn't traditionally work with as well, and see how we can help and support them and overcome the barriers. It's allowed us to have huge organisational growth as well, and given us a clear roadmap to do that. So all the way down from our trustees, all the way down to our delivery staff and our volunteers. We've managed to grow and double in size effectively, and we're projected to double again over the next year, despite COVID, because of the way that we've been able to position ourselves through this strategy. And the football club also seen a lot of benefits as well. So a lot of positive publicity. We've been going around doing a lot of work in schools, which have supported to build the fans of the future as well. But particularly through COVID, where there's no football taking place, that really supported us to grow our understanding and within the community of who we are, and show that the football club is giving back, whilst also showing that we are a charity supporting that. So to finish, really, some of the takeaways really from what I've kind of gone through over the last 35 minutes is start with why. That is the most important part. Know the purpose. For us, knowing our purpose has led us to understand that we regardless of what's happening in the wider world, we know that we've got a part to play within it. And that, for us, staff, volunteers, everyone across the organisation, is really key. It's having that clarity on the outcomes as well that you want to achieve. So there's a lot of work that we can deliver, but it's about those outcomes we want to make, and that makes decision making a lot easier across the organisation. When we were developing our strategy, one of the key things that we wanted to do was build in flexibility, because if we're too rigid, it doesn't allow us to be agile and move towards the needs of the community. But equally, it's about making sure that we're not so flexible that we're going after everything. It's all about co-producing. So consult and listen to your community, and it doesn't just stop after you've completed your strategy. We continuously go back to our community. We continue to ask and find out what it is that they need. Is our work still relevant? Are we doing the best that we can do? Is there anything else that we can add to it? Because things will change, and 3 years is a long time, as we know through the last 6 months, the amount of changes that can happen. For us, the data-driven approach has worked really well. So combining that data-driven with the input from the community has helped our model and our strategy come to life. And it's about then how you embed that, and how we've embedded that across the organisation, from community voice groups, youth voice groups, with the people that we engage with, and looking at the multiple income streams that are available from diversifying work. That through COVID for us has been massive, because where one element of our work has not been able to take place, we've had another 2 elements that have been able to continue bringing in that income that allows us to continue running all elements of our work. And that for us means that we can continue making an impact across the community in a number of different forms. And it's just about keeping it simple as well. So one of the things that we learned was we wanted to make sure that we had something that was public facing, that people can understand what we do very simply, and equally then showing funders that we know what we're talking about, and we've got a clear plan in place which can align to what they are looking for as well. Thank you for listening for the last sort of 37 minutes. We have got a bit of time for questions now. There's a link to our strategy in full there if anyone would like to see it on our website. But if there's any questions, feel free to fire them into the chat box. There aren't any questions coming through at the moment, so either I've done a very good job or I've baffled you all. But feel free to fire across any questions that you might have after this on the FDN portal. And if anyone wants to connect, share best practice, more than happy to share some of our work as well. So Peter, in terms of question, did your team grow to meet the needs of your new plan strategy? Or was your final plan based on your existing capacity? No, we grew our team. So that was looking at where we were at the start and what we wanted to get to. So over the course of our strategic aims, we looked at the types of positions that we needed to bring in to achieve that. And we brought them online at different points. So that, for example, meant bringing in a new employability coordinator as a brand new position as part of it. We've still got plans to bring in a health and wellbeing coordinator as we grow. And we've got plans to also bring in additional staff that sort of fit underneath the core department leads as we grow as well. So we've got an ever-evolving organisational chart that follows the strategy. Fantastic. Thank you all. And hopefully you have a great rest of the conference. I know I'm looking forward to seeing lots of the other presentations later on today as well. Thank you.